Good morning, students. Welcome to Best College online classes. In this class, we are going to discuss about various associated glands which are associated with female reproductive system. As already I gave you in last class, the vestibular glands, greater vestibular and lesser vestibular glands we discussed in last class. In this class, we will continue the remaining associated glands of female reproductive system. See, as you know, accessory glands are secondary sex organs or accessory sex organs. These accessory glands, which associated with the female reproductive system, play an important role to maintain lubrication and also to maintain a pH required in the reproductive tract, and also that helps in the secretion of mucus, and also this play an important role in nourishment of newborn. So to nourish the newborn, there are a pair of mammary glands present in the female reproductive system. Already we discussed the role of greater vestibular glands and lesser vestibular glands in last class, and where that are located, all that we discussed in last class. Now we have to discuss about the one more type of accessory glands, mammary glands. Mammary glands, female reproductive system. Now we are going to discuss the third type of accessory glands, that is the mammary glands. What is the function of mammary glands? You all know that these mammary glands are actually non-functional before parturition, before delivery. This cannot play any role, but after parturition, this mammary glands start secreting mammary fluid. That mammary fluid is commonly known as milk, which is essential for the nourishment of newborn. Okay, to nourish the newborn, there is what? There is mammary fluid secreted by the mammalians. So that you have to remember here. Is it clear? Right. Now we will discuss about the mammary glands in human being. Mammary glands. So here in human being, a pair of mammary glands are present in the thoracic region. A pair of mammary glands are present in the thoracic region. These mammary glands are present in both the male and female. These are present in both the male and female human being, but in male human being, these are rudimentary and non-functional. In male, these are rudimentary and non-functional. In male human being, these are rudimentary, that are greatly reduced, and that does not play any role. So that are non-functional. So in male, these are rudimentary and non-functional. But whereas in female, these mammary glands will develop after puberty. The growth of mammary glands will mainly start after puberty by the influence of a hormone estrogen. So the development of mammary glands will take place after puberty by the influence of a female reproductive hormone, that is estrogen. That you have to remember. Once again, I am telling you, these mammary glands in female human being develop after puberty by the influence of estrogen. By the influence of estrogen in female, after puberty, the mammary glands will start growing. That is, the growth and development of mammary glands will be influenced by estrogen. Okay, that you have to remember here. And after completion of that, one more thing you have to remember, even after development, until the first parturition or delivery, this become non-functional. So in female also, up to first delivery, up to parturition, this mammary gland does not play any role. But after production of baby, after parturition of fetus, Within 24 hours, these mammary glands will start its function, that is secretion of milk. Secretion of milk. Is it clear? So after parturition, after first parturition, within 24 hours after first delivery, the mammary glands will begin its function. Now we have to discuss about the structure of mammary glands in human being. So here, observe one thing. Actually, these mammary glands are modified sweat glands. Modified sweat glands. Mammary glands are modified sweat glands. Very important one. Mammary glands are modified sweat glands, and these mammary glands are attached to the pectoralis major muscles. So at which location the mammary glands are modified into, the sweat glands are modified into mammary glands in the thoracic region. The pectoralis major muscles, pectoralis major muscles. So these are attached to, or these are located on which muscles? Pectoralis major muscles are muscles in thoracic region. Okay. So the mammary glands in human being are that are located or that are attached to which muscles? Pectoralis major muscles. These mammary glands are modified sweat glands. Mammary glands are modified sweat glands. And the female, that is which hormone responsible for the development of mammary glands after puberty? Estrogen hormone. What about in male? In male human being, the mammary glands are rudimentary and non-functional. Okay, these are located in thoracic region. These are located in thoracic region. On which muscles? Pectoralis muscles. These are present. Okay. Now we have to discuss about the structure of mammary gland. The structure of mammary glands. Is it clear? In human being, a pair of mammary glands are present. These mammary glands are for nourishment of newborn, for nourishment of baby. Okay. In male, these mammary glands are rudimentary and non-functional. But in female, mammary glands will develop after puberty by the influence of estrogen hormone. And after first parturition, that will start secretion of milk or mammary fluid. Okay, until that are non-functional. Actually, mammary glands are modified sweat glands, and these are attached to pectoralis major muscles of thoracic region or chest region. That are attached to which muscles? Pectoralis major muscles. Okay, that are located on that muscles. Now we will discuss about all the diagrammatic representations and all of this female reproductive system now. Okay, here you see I am drawing the diagrammatic representation of female mammary glands. So here observe carefully. These are ribs. These are ribs. In between the ribs, there are ribs. In between the ribs, intercostal muscles are present. Intercostal muscles. What are that? Intercostal muscles. In between ribs, intercostal muscles are present. From these intercostal muscles, after intercostal muscles, I gave you another type of muscles where exactly these mammary glands are attached. On which surface? What is this? It is pectoralis major muscles. These are pectoralis major muscles. Okay. Two type of muscles I gave you here. One is intercostal muscles of ribs. Another one is pectoralis major muscles. Okay. Now on these pectoralis major muscles, so like this, there is mammary gland. And the apex of mammary gland is known as nipple. The apex of mammary gland is known as nipple. So observe here, it is the mammary gland, which is a modified sweat gland, and it is attached to pectoralis major muscles. What are these? Pectoralis major muscles. It is pectoralis major muscles. Pectoralis major muscles. And here, what are these muscles? Above this, that is intercostal muscles of ribs. Intercostal muscles of ribs. Intercostal muscles of ribs and pectoralis major muscles. And here it is the mammary gland. And what are the components that present in the mammary gland? Mammary gland mainly possesses glandular epithelium. Glandular epithelium. What are the various components present in the mammary gland? Mammary gland possesses glandular epithelium and various quantities of fat, and also connective tissues. Connective tissue. The main components in the mammary gland is glandular epithelium, fat, and also connective tissue. Okay, glandular epithelium, fat, and connective tissue are the main components in the mammary gland. If you observe here, the glandular epithelium which is present in the mammary gland is divided into 15 to 20 lobes, which are known as mammary lobes. Okay, so here the glandular epithelium which is present in this, the glandular epithelium which is present in the mammary gland is divided into lobes, which are known as mammary lobes. How many mammary lobes are there in each mammary gland? There are 15 to 20 mammary lobes are there in each mammary gland. Once again, I am repeating, the mammary gland possesses mammary lobes. How many mammary lobes are there in each mammary gland? 15 to 20 mammary lobes are present. What is a mammary lobe? What is mammary lobe? So here, the glandular epithelium which is present in each mammary gland is divided into 15 to 20 mammary lobes. Now, I'll just draw that, observe. For example, see the glandular tissue here, it is divided like lobes. So it is one lobe, one mammary lobe. It is another mammary lobe. It is another mammary lobe. Like that, how many mammary lobes are there? Here, there are 15 to 20 mammary lobes. 15 to 20 mammary lobes are present. Once again, I am repeating. The main component in the mammary gland is glandular epithelium. The main component in the mammary gland is glandular epithelium. This glandular epithelium is divided into 15 to 20 mammary lobes. What are these? Mammary lobes. This is mammary lobes. How many mammary lobes are there in each mammary gland? 15 to 20 mammary lobes are there. What is mammary lobe? The glandular epithelium which is present in the mammary gland is divided into a group or a lobe-like structures which are known as mammary lobes. How many mammary lobes are there in each mammary gland? In each mammary gland, there are 15 to 20 mammary lobes present. 15 to 20 mammary lobes present. I am drawing a separate mammary lobe here. For example, it is a mammary lobe, right? Inside each mammary lobe, clusters of observe like a bunch of grapes. There are clusters of cells present. These clusters of secretory cells, clusters of glandular cells are present here. So in each mammary lobe, there are clusters of cells which appear like a bunch of grapes, like these clusters of cells present in each mammary gland, mammary lobe. These clusters of cells here, these clusters of cells, observe. So each mammary lobe contains clusters of glandular cells or secretory cells. These clusters of glandular or secretory cells are known as alveoli. What are these clusters of cells here? Alveoli. Okay. What is alveoli? The clusters of glandular cells which present in each mammary lobe. The clusters of glandular cells present. Clusters of glandular cells present in each mammary lobe. Clusters of glandular cells present in each mammary lobe. Like that, it will observe. In these mammary lobes, there are clusters of glandular cells which appear like a bunch of grapes. That is what? Alveoli. These are alveoli. Alveoli. So what is alveoli? Clusters of, listen once again, clusters of glandular cells present in each mammary lobe are known as alveoli. These alveoli are the sites of secretion of milk. So where the milk is exactly secreted in the mammary gland? Alveoli. Alveoli are the clusters of glandular cells that present in the mammary lobes, and in this the secretion of milk takes place. The secretion of mammary fluid or milk takes place in the alveoli. Because of that, we can consider alveoli as the structural and functional units of mammary glands. Which are the structural and functional units of mammary glands? That is alveoli. Understood? So, mammary gland mainly contains three components: glandular epithelium, fat, and connective tissue. Here I give you glandular tissue. Or glandular epithelium. The glandular epithelium which is present in each mammary gland is divided into 15 to 20 mammary lobes. 15 to 20 mammary lobes. In each mammary lobe, there are clusters of secretory cells or glandular cells which are known as alveoli. That are known as alveoli. This alveoli secretes the milk. These are the sites of secretion of milk. Because of that, we can consider alveoli as a structural and functional units of mammary gland. Along with this, already I told you, there is another important component here is fat. If you see, it is fat in mammary glands. It is the fat. So fat also there in the mammary glands. And in between these mammary lobes, if you observe, there is connective tissue like this. This is actually interlobular connective tissue. In between lobes, there is a connective tissue, interlobular connective tissue. So if you observe here, already I gave you glandular epithelium, and after that here, what is this? This whitish, this white color, no, that is fat. And here in this blue color, what I drawn here is, that is connective tissue. That is located in between the lobes, no? Interlobular connective tissue. Interlobular connective tissue. So all three components are completed here now. So the mammary gland is mainly made up of three components. Number one, the majority of this is glandular epithelium. The glandular epithelium in mammary gland is divided into 15 to 20 mammary lobes. In each mammary lobe, there are clusters of cells present which are known as alveoli. These are the sites of secretion of milk. So we consider that as a structural and functional unit of mammary gland. And after completion of that, here the second important component is fat. Actually, the fat which is present here in the mammary gland is responsible to maintain a particular posture of mammary gland. What is the use of this fat? To maintain a particular posture of mammary gland. This fat is required to maintain a particular posture of mammary gland. The fat is essential. and the size of mammary glands may depends upon the quantity of fat accumulated. The size of mammary glands will depends upon the quantity of fat accumulated in it. Okay, so that also you have to remember. And in between these mammary lobes, there are interlobular connective tissue. Interlobular connective tissue is there. This interlobular connective tissue play an important role in the ejaculation during ejaculation of milk. This interlobular connective tissue undergo contractions which may create pressure on the alveoli that leads to ejection of milk. I will give you that at the time of discussing the ejection of milk here. Okay, right? Just remember this structure. And after that, the apex of this mammary gland, you all know that apex of mammary gland is known as nipple. The apex of mammary gland is known as nipple. The apex of mammary gland is known as nipple. So that also you have to remember. The apex of mammary gland is known as nipple. And around this nipple, around the nipple, there is a dark pigmented skin or highly pigmented skin. Around the nipple, there is a dark skin or highly pigmented skin. That a dark region which is present around the nipple is known as areola. Areola. So here, what is nipple? The apex of the mammary gland is known as nipple. The apex of mammary gland is known as nipple. This nipple is, what is the use of this nipple? For the nourishment of baby. By sucking this nipple, the baby will get the milk. Okay. So by sucking the nipple, the baby will get milk. And around this nipple, there is a highly pigmented skin or dark region which is known as areola. What is the use of this areola that present around the nipple? Around the nipple, this areola is present and that poses glands which are known as areolar glands. The areola areolar glands. Areolar glands are present. So around the nipple there is a areola. Around the areola there is areolar glands. This areolar gland secretes some lubricant fluids. That fluids reduces the friction at the time of sucking of nipple. So when the baby sucks the nipple, at that time areolar glands will be activated. That secretes some sticky fluids. That sticky fluids reduces more friction on the nipple while the baby is sucking the nipple. Okay. So areola is a dark region around the nipple, or it is highly pigmented region around the nipple, and this areola contain areolar glands. That areolar gland secretes some oily substances or sticky substances or lubricant substances during sucking of nipple by the baby. These secretions reduces the friction on the surface of nipple. That reduces the friction on the surface of nipple at the time of sucking of nipple by the baby. Okay, so that you have to remember here. And after that, so the majority components are completed. Once again, just observe here. These are ribs. In between ribs, there are intercostal muscles, and here these are greater. So if you observe here, these are pectoralis major muscles. Pectoralis major muscles. On the surface of this pectoralis major muscles, the sweat glands are modified into mammary glands. The mammary gland mainly made up of three important components: glandular epithelium, fat, and also connective tissue. The glandular epithelium which is present in each mammary gland is divided into 15 to 20 mammary lobes. How many mammary lobes are there in each mammary gland? 15 to 20 mammary lobes. These mammary lobes contain clusters of secretory cells or glandular cells known as alveoli. These are actual sites of secretion of milk. So we can call this as a structural and functional units of mammary glands. Okay, and after that here there is fat. The second important component is fat. Fat is essential to maintain a particular posture to mammary gland, and the size of mammary gland will depends upon the quantity of fat that accumulated in the mammary gland. And in between mammary lobes, there is interlobular connective tissue present. Interlobular connective tissue present. And the apex of mammary gland is known as nipple, and this nipple is useful for the nourishment of a baby. The baby will suck the nipple and get the milk. Around this nipple, there is a dark pigmented skin, or a highly pigmented skin is present. Highly pigmented region or dark region is present around the nipple, which is known as areola. This areola contains areolar glands. The areolar gland secretes some sticky substances or oily substances during sucking of milk by the baby, and that reduces friction on the nipple when the baby is sucking the nipple. Okay, at the time of sucking the nipple, these secretions, areolar gland secretions, reduces the friction on the nipple. Right, that you have to remember. Now, how the milk that's secreted in the alveoli will come out? What is the passage present in a mammary gland? What is the passage that present in the mammary gland that helps for the transport of milk from the site of secretion to exterior? The site of secretion, you all know that. What is the site of secretion? Alveoli. Then how this milk will come out from the alveoli? How the milk will come out from the alveoli? So observe here, from each alveoli, there is a arising of minute tubules. Minute tubules are mammary tubules. For example, see here in this diagram I am just drawing. So what are these minute structures that arises from the alveoli? Mammary tubules, like this. Mammary tubules are there. For your understanding, I am drawing here. Observe first. Shall I erase this? So here there is a arising of minute tubular structures. These minute tubular structures are known as mammary tubules. Mammary tubules. The mammary tubules are united. The mammary tubules are united and form mammary ducts. What are these? Mammary ducts. Like this. Mammary ducts. First see, from the alveoli which will arise? From the alveoli here, mammary tubules. What are these? Like this, mammary tubules, minute mammary tubules arises. Minute structures that are mammary tubules. Mammary tubules. First here, mammary tubules. Mammary tubules. And mammary tubules are fused with each other and leads to formation of mammary ducts. Mammary ducts. Mammary ducts. Again, these mammary ducts are fused to form a large and wide structures like this. So these are known as mammary ampulla. Mammary ampulla. Mammary ampulla. So mammary ampulla. Now this mammary ampulla will opens into another duct here. Observe here like this. It is known as lactiferous duct. Lactiferous duct. Lactiferous duct. These lactiferous ducts will opens into lactiferous ducts. These are lactiferous ducts will directly opens out through the nipple. So here it is nipple. through the nipple, lactiferous ducts will opens out. So through this lactiferous ducts, through the nipple, the lactiferous ducts will opens out. These are lactiferous ducts. Lactiferous ducts. Lactiferous ducts that you have to remember. So this passage is very important. The sequence is very important. What are the various tubular structures that are distributed in the mammary gland that helps in the transport of milk from the site of secretion to exterior? Once again, observe carefully here. From the alveoli, which is the site of secretion of milk, there is arising of minute tubules or minute tubular structures that are known as mammary tubules. These mammary tubules unite to form mammary ducts. Again, mammary ducts are fused with each other and leads to formation of wide structures which are known as mammary ampulla. Mammary ampulla opens into lactiferous duct. Lactiferous duct will directly opens into nipple. From there, it will opens out. Okay. So that is the sequence you have to remember here. Now, for example, if you observe here, if it is mammary lobes, these are mammary ampullas. For example, mammary ampulla, these are in this diagram. Mammary ampulla, these are that are connected to mammary ducts. Mammary ducts are formed by mammary tubules. Now all this will opens into nipple through lactiferous duct. Through lactiferous ducts. Through lactiferous ducts that opens. Through lactiferous duct that opens out through the nipple. That you have to remember. Is it clear? Once again, I am repeating the arrangement of tubules or ducts here for the transport of milk from the alveoli to the exterior. Okay. See, from each alveoli, there is arising of minute tubules which are known as mammary tubules. These mammary tubules are fused to form mammary ducts. Again, the mammary ducts will fuse and form mammary ampulla. Mammary ampulla, it is a wide structure. Actually, the milk may store here. For a short period of time, milk can store in mammary ampulla. Again, the mammary ampulla of each lobe. From each lobe, all the mammary ampulla are fused and opens into lactiferous duct, or that are modified into a lactiferous duct. Each lactiferous duct from a lobe will opens out through the nipple. Each lactiferous duct from each lobe opens into nipple. From there, it will opens into exterior. So here, from each mammary lobe, how many lactiferous ducts are arises? One lactiferous duct. From each mammary lobe, if you observe this diagram carefully, here I had drawn mammary tubules. All that fuse and form mammary duct. All the mammary ducts fuse and form mammary ampulla. All mammary ampulla fuse and finally opens into lactiferous duct. Lactiferous duct. Okay. So from each lobe, one lactiferous duct arises. So total number of lactiferous ducts in a mammary gland. What is the total number of lactiferous ducts in a mammary gland? That is 15 to 20. So total number of mammary lobes are 15 to 20. So here, what is the total number of lactiferous ducts? The total number of lactiferous ducts in each mammary gland is 15 to 20. They may ask in exam, what is the number of lactiferous ducts in a female? What is the number of lactiferous ducts in the mammary glands of female? So in a female, there are two mammary glands. In each mammary gland, 15 to 20 lactiferous ducts are present. So the total number is 30 to 40. how many lactiferous ducts are possible in a female? That is 30 to 40 lactiferous ducts are present, right? And how many mammary lobes are there? That is also same. That is 30 to 40. Okay, in each mammary gland 15 to 20. So total 30 to 40 that you have to remember here. So the number of mammary lobes is equal to number of lactiferous duct. Lactiferous duct. They may ask this sequence. First, which will form from the alveoli, which is directly connected to alveoli. That is mammary tubule. Mammary tubules will fuse or unite and modify into mammary ducts. Again, mammary ducts will unite and form the large and wide structure that is mammary ampulla. Mammary ampulla. This mammary ampulla of each lobe, all mammary ampulla of each lobe will again fuse and open into lactiferous duct. Lactiferous duct will reach the nipple and it directly opens out. When the lactiferous duct will open? When a baby sucks the milk after parturition, after 24 hours, after parturition, within 24 hours, the mammary glands will start its function. And then whenever the baby will start sucking the milk or sucking the nipple, at that time, that act as a stimulus, then lactiferous ducts will open. So lactiferous ducts will open in response to sucking of nipple by the baby, okay, after parturition, right? That you have to remember. And one more important thing you have to remember here, is it clear about the structure of a mammary gland? It is very important for PUC and also for competitive exams. They may ask the diagrammatic representation of mammary gland for PUC exams, okay, that you have to practice. Next, after that, is it clear? The sequence. Once again, I am repeating: mammary duct, mammary tubules, mammary ducts, mammary ampulla, lactiferous duct. Lactiferous duct. Okay. Right. After completion of that, after parturition, how the alveoli will start secretion of milk? What is the reason for the activation of this? See, whenever parturition will be completed, the hormone prolactin levels will increase. The pituitary hormone prolactin. So prolactin activates the alveoli. Prolactin stimulates the alveoli to secrete the milk. So, which is a milk secreting hormone, prolactin. After parturition, there is increase in the levels of prolactin. That prolactin will stimulate the alveoli to secrete the milk. So, the milk secreting enzyme, milk secreting hormone. Which hormone is responsible for the secretion of milk? Prolactin. Why? Before parturition, there is no secretion of milk. Before delivery, why there is no secretion of milk? Because the prolactin levels are not sufficient. But after parturition, prolactin levels will be increases. Whenever prolactin will increases, that prolactin will act on the alveoli of mammary glands. Then the mammary glands start secretion of mammary fluid or milk. Okay, that you have to remember. And after that, the milk will be secreted by the action of prolactin. But this prolactin cannot able to help in the ejection of milk. That is, sending of milk out from the alveoli to exterior. Ejection or release of milk from the mammary gland to exterior. For that, one more hormone is required. That is also a pituitary hormone, oxytocin. Oxytocin is responsible for ejection of milk. Ejection of milk. Prolactin is responsible for the production of milk or secretion of milk. Oxytocin is responsible for ejection of milk. How it will causes for ejection of milk? Already I told you, oxytocin mainly show its action on smooth muscles of myometrium. Already I told you. It will causes for severe contractions, very strong contractions in the myometrium of uterus that leads to expelling out of baby from the uterus, which is known as parturition. Here, what is the role of oxytocin in the ejection of milk? I told you, in between the lobes, mammary lobes, or around the mammary lobes, there is interlobular connective tissue. So this oxytocin causes for contraction of connective tissues here. So the connective tissue which is present here, that will be contracted. So whenever the connective tissues will contract, then what will happen? Automatically, due to contraction of that will create a pressure on the mammary lobes. Whenever mammary lobes will be contracted, that will create a pressure on the alveoli. Then alveoli will send the milk into mammary tubules, from mammary tubules to mammary ducts to mammary ampulla. In the mammary ampulla, that milk will temporarily stores, and next that will enter into lactiferous duct. From lactiferous duct, that will be sent out. Okay, that you have to know. I gave you here two hormones. One is the hormone of milk production. Another one is the hormone of milk ejection, which is responsible for the production of milk or secretion of milk. Prolactin, which is responsible for the ejection of milk. Oxytocin. And what is the composition of milk and how the baby will get a sufficient nourishment, or how the highly required nutrients will be supplied to the baby by the milk of mother. All that we will discuss in the topic lactation. In this chapter, at last we have to discuss about lactation. That is the process of production of milk by the mammary glands of the mother after parturition is lactation. In that topic, we will discuss all the details. What is colostrum? What is the essentiality of colostrum for newborn? What is the importance of breastfeeding? And all we will discuss in the topic lactation. I just gave you the structure of mammary gland. Is it clear? The structure of mammary gland is completed. So up to that, all associated glands are completed. Associated glands are completed. Once again, listen carefully. The female reproductive system has three type of accessory glands that associated with its reproductive system. And here, what are the accessory glands in female reproductive system? There are a pair of Bartholin's glands or greater vestibular glands. A pair of Bartholin's glands or greater vestibular glands, and numerous of Skene's glands or lesser vestibular glands, and one pair of mammary glands are present. So the function of all this also already I gave. That is the completion of accessory glands. The accessory ducts are completed. Accessory glands also completed. And already I gave you about external genitalia in female reproductive system. External genitalia of female reproductive system. So up to that, the female reproductive system is completed. In female reproductive system, we discussed about the primary sex organs or gonads, that are a pair of ovaries, which are unshelled almond shape, that are located on either side of uterus in the pelvic region, and various layers that covers, and various components that present inside, and all we discussed already. The function of ovaries also we discussed. After completion of that, secondary sex organs or accessory sex organs we discussed. In that, we discussed the accessory ducts. The female reproductive system possesses a pair of fallopian tubes or oviducts, an uterus, a cervix, and vagina as the accessory ducts. All of majority of these are developed from the Mullerian ducts of mesonephrons. And after that, we discussed about the accessory glands. In that, greater vestibular glands are Bartholin's glands, lesser vestibular glands are Skene's glands, and a pair of mammary glands we discussed. In external genitalia, the external genitalia of female reproductive system is known as vulva or pudendum. In the pudendum, there is mons pubis, labia majora, labia minora, clitoris, and hymen we discussed. Okay, so all that structures we discussed here. Vestibule also I gave you. What is the role of this vestibule? The glands are located here, and it has two openings, one upper opening, one lower opening, that is urethral and vaginal openings, and all other topics we discussed. So up to that, the female reproductive system is completed. Now, we have to discuss about hormonal regulation of female reproductive system. Hormonal regulation of female reproductive system. How female reproductive system is regulated by various hormones. The next topic here, hormonal regulation of female reproductive system. Hormonal regulation of female reproductive system that we will discuss now. Okay, right? In that, as already I gave you about hormonal regulation of male reproductive system, which part of central nervous system play a vital role in the hormonal regulation of female reproductive system, male reproductive system, that is hypothalamus. Hypothalamus. Here also same, that hypothalamus play an important role in the regulation. So now, hormonal regulation of female reproductive system. Hormonal regulation of female reproductive system. Hormonal regulation of female reproductive system. In that, hormonal regulation. First, hypothalamus of the brain, which is master endocrine gland. In that, hormonal regulation of female reproductive system. Here first, hypothalamus. Write down hormonal regulation. Hormonal regulation of female reproductive system. Hormonal regulation of female reproductive system. So, in this hormonal regulation of female reproductive system, what you have to learn that we will discuss. Hormonal regulation of female reproductive system. First, hypothalamus of brain is the master of master endocrine gland. It is the master of regulation. It is the master of regulation of endocrine gland. In turn, endocrine glands are under the control of pituitary gland. You are all on that. See, hypothalamus secretes gonadotropin releasing hormones. Gonadotropin releasing hormones. Already I told you, in male reproductive system, hypothalamus, in the influence or by the influence of increase or decrease the levels of reproductive hormones, hypothalamus secretes gonadotropin releasing hormones. So what are the female reproductive hormones here? Estrogen and progesterone. Estrogen and progesterone. The two hormone levels play an important role in the regulation. For example, see, if there is decrease in the levels of estrogen and progesterone, hypothalamus will be activated. That will secrete gonadotropin releasing hormones. If the levels of estrogen and progesterone is more or high, that act as a negative feedback and that suppresses the hypothalamus to secrete the gonadotropin releasing hormones. So, what are the hormones secreted to the hypothalamus here? Hypothalamus secretes GnRH, means gonadotropin releasing hormones. Gonadotropin releasing hormones. Gonadotropin releasing hormones. Gonadotropin releasing hormones. These gonadotropin releasing hormones will act on pituitary gland, anterior lobe of pituitary gland. gonadotropins will act on anterior lobe of pituitary gland, which is known as adenohypophysis. What is the target of this? Adenohypophysis or anterior lobe of pituitary. Anterior lobe of pituitary gland. Anterior lobe of pituitary gland or adenohypophysis. Adenohypophysis. Anterior lobe of pituitary gland or adenohypophysis. That also you have to remember. Next, what is the response of this anterior lobe of pituitary or adenohypophysis for this gonadotropin releasing hormones? By the influence of gonadotropin releasing hormones, the anterior lobe of pituitary secretes two hormones which are known as gonadotropins. FSH, follicle stimulating hormone. FSH, follicle stimulating hormone. The first hormone here is FSH or follicle stimulating hormone. And here LH, luteinizing hormone. FSH and LH, follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormones are secreted by anterior lobe of pituitary gland. Now, this FSH and LH will act on female gonad. What are the female gonads here? Ovaries. Female gonads. So FSH will act on these ovaries. LH also act on ovaries. Then what will happen after this? The ovaries will secrete two hormones. One is estrogen. Another one is progesterone. Estrogen and progesterone. Estrogen and progesterone will be secreted there. Estrogen and progesterone. Right? Is it clear? Estrogen and progesterone will be secreted. Now, this estrogen is responsible for the regeneration of endometrium of uterus. So, in every menstrual cycle, there is a degeneration or breakdown of endometrium takes place. At the same time, by the action of estrogen, again, proliferations takes place in the endometrium that leads to regeneration of endometrium. Already I gave you the layer of uterus that undergoes cyclic changes is endometrium. In every menstrual cycle, if there is no pregnancy, if there is no fertilization and pregnancy, in next menstrual cycle, endometrium is a continuous process except in a pregnant female from menarche to menopause. That may leads to menstrual flow. Okay. Now this estrogen will act on which organ? This will act on uterus. Estrogen will act on uterus and causes for regeneration of endometrium. And what about progesterone? Progesterone is known as pregnancy hormone. So estrogen causes for reformation or regeneration of endometrium. Once again, listen. Estrogen is responsible for the proliferative divisions in the last part of endometrium and causes for reformation or regeneration of endometrium in the uterus. To maintain that endometrium for pregnancy, which is required, progesterone is required. So for the regeneration of endometrium, estrogen is required. For the maintenance of this endometrium for long period of time throughout the pregnancy, which is required, progesterone is required. Progesterone is required. So both the hormones. If fertilization takes place, there is formation of. If there is formation of a zygote and embryo, progesterone will continuously secrete in the body of a female to maintain endometrium throughout the pregnancy. So, which is the pregnancy hormone? Progesterone. Okay. Now, what is the importance of FSH and LH? What is the action of FSH? And what is the action of LH exactly on the ovaries? That also we have to discuss. We will discuss all that at the time of discussing oogenesis, how follicles will grow and how follicle will rupture. What is the role of growth of follicles by FSH? What is the role of FSH in the growth of ovarian follicles? What is the role of LH in the rupture of follicles? All we will discuss at the time of discussing about the oogenesis. Oogenesis along with the modifications of follicles or growth of follicles. All that I will give you there. The importance of FSH and LH. I just mentioned here that will act on the ovary. Maybe you all know that FSH is responsible for the growth of ovarian follicles. Then ovarian follicles will complete its growth and maturation, modified into a mature follicle, which is known as Graafian follicle. This Graafian follicle will release oocyte, and the ruptured Graafian follicle will modify into an yellow color body, which is known as corpus luteum. Corpus luteum. To maintain corpus luteum, LH play an important role, and also to rupture the Graafian follicle, LH play an important role. All that information we will discuss in two topics. One is in the oogenesis at the time of discussion about the growth of ovarian follicles and also rupture of ovarian follicles, and also we will discuss these hormones in the topic menstrual cycle. Just remember here, now estrogen and progesterone will mainly act on which part? Uterus. Just remember, both will act on uterus. Is it not visible? So the target of these two, estrogen and progesterone, is uterus. Right, that you have to remember. Is it clear about hormonal regulation? Now, whenever hormone levels are less, whenever the hormone levels, progesterone and estrogen levels are low, that show positive feedback mechanism. Means that act as a stimulus for the hypothalamus to secrete gonadotropin releasing hormones. If the hormone levels are high or more, what will happen? It will act as it will show negative feedback mechanism, and it suppresses the hypothalamus to secrete the gonadotropin releasing hormones. So observe here, the hormonal regulation of female reproductive system, it is mainly depends upon the concentrations of two hormones, estrogen and progesterone. If the levels of estrogen and progesterone is low in the body of a female, that act as a stimulus for hypothalamus, then hypothalamus releases gonadotropin releasing hormones. This gonadotropin releasing hormones act on adenohypophysis or anterior lobe of pituitary. Then anterior lobe of pituitary secretes two gonadotropins, FSH and LH. Both will act on the female gonads, that is the ovary. FSH causes for growth of ovarian follicles. LH causes for rupture of Graafian follicle and also for the formation of corpus luteum. Then the ovaries, the developing follicle secretes the estrogen, and the corpus luteum secretes the progesterone. So slowly estrogen and progesterone levels will increases. Whenever estrogen and progesterone levels are high, that act as a negative feedback mechanism that suppresses the hypothalamus to stop the secretion of gonadotropin releasing hormones. Then there is no stimulus for the anterior lobe of pituitary. Then FSH and LH secretions will be stopped. Estrogen will act on degenerated part of endometrium and causes for proliferations in the endometrium and leads to regeneration or reformation of endometrium. And progesterone maintains endometrium throughout the pregnancy. If fertilization takes place, progesterone maintains the thickness of endometrium throughout the pregnancy. Okay. If there is no fertilization, this hormone levels will reduces. Automatically, if the hormone levels will be reduces in next menstrual cycle, what will happen? That act as a stimulus for hypothalamus. So in next menstrual cycle, again hormone levels will increases. All the processes takes place. Whenever hormone levels reach to high, automatically hypothalamus will be suppressed and stop the secretion of gonadotropin releasing hormones. Okay, so that you have to remember here. Hormonal regulation of female reproductive system, which itself acts as a positive and negative feedback mechanism based on the levels or based on the quantities of estrogen and progesterone. Okay, that also you have to remember how female reproductive system is hormonally regulated. And one more important thing you have to remember here, what is the role of all these hormones and how the levels of these hormones will change during a menstrual cycle. In various phases, how the levels of these hormones will modify. That also we will discuss in the topic menstrual cycle. Okay, that is completion of hormonal regulation of female reproductive system. And after this, we have to discuss about common disorders of female reproductive system. And after that, we'll start gametogenesis. Okay, before going to that, take 5 minutes of break. Friends, now we'll discuss about what are the common disorders of female reproductive system. Disorders of female reproductive system. Disorders of female reproductive system. Reproductive system. Disorders of female reproductive system. Here, I'm going to give you some common disorders that affects the female reproductive system. In that, first, oophoretis. Oophoretis. The first disease or the first disorder which affects the ovaries of female, that is the oophoretis. Oophoretis is the disorder for the ovaries in female reproductive system. In this oophoretis, what will happen in the ovaries? Inflammation takes place. That is inflammation. Already I told you, a painful reddish swelling is known as inflammation. So oophoretis is the inflammation of ovaries by infections. The inflammation of ovaries by infections. If any infections are there in the ovaries, that may finally leads to a painful reddish swelling. A painful reddish swelling in the ovaries, which is known as oophoretis. Oophoretis. So here, what is oophoretis? The inflammation of ovaries by infection. The inflammation of ovaries by infections is known as oophoretis. The inflammation of ovaries by infections is known as oophoretis. That may disturb the normal ovulations, or that may causes for unusual discomfortness in the region of, in the pelvic region or in the ovaries. So that you have to remember. Oophoretis is the inflammation of ovaries by the infections. Next, one more disease for this ovaries, that is oophorocystosis. 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 The second one is oophorocystosis. See, cyst means a fluid filled cavity. Cyst means a fluid filled cavity. So here, in this disorder, there is formation of many fluid filled cavities that are cysts or water tumors or fluid tumors in the ovaries. So oophorocystosis is a disorder of ovaries. Here, formation of fluid tumors in the ovaries takes place. What will happen in this condition? Formation of fluid tumors or fluid-filled cavities takes place in the ovaries. So due to formation of these fluid-filled cavities, that may lead to enlargement of size of ovaries. Enlargement of size of ovaries. So in OO4 it is a inflammation because of infections. But oophorocystosis, it is formation of fluid filled, observe carefully, formation of fluid tumors or formation of fluid filled cavities in more number in the ovaries. That may lead to enlargement of ovaries. That may lead to enlargement of ovaries, and that will disturb the normal functions of ovaries. So I gave you two disorders to the female gonads. One is oophoritis, another one is oophorocystosis. What is oophoritis? The inflammation of ovaries by infections is oophoritis, and the formation of fluid tumors or fluid-filled cavities in the ovaries is known as oophorocystosis. By simple surgery, this cyst or fluid tumors may removed, or with the increase of age, after parturition, this disease may cure itself. Okay, there will be chances for natural curing of this disease by itself. Okay, that you have to remember here. Next, endometriosis. Next disease, endometriosis. What is endometrium? You all know that endometrium is the innermost layer of uterus. Endometrium is the innermost layer of uterus. So usually endometrium will be degenerated and reformed or regenerated inside the uterus only. But sometimes endometrium will grow outside the uterus. Outside the uterus. That endometrium may grow in fallopian tubes. That endometrium may grow on the surface of uterus, or that may grow in the cervix. So the endometrium will grow outside the uterus is endometriosis. The growth of endometrium or the development of endometrium outside the uterus, the development of endometrium outside the uterus is known as endometrium, that endometriosis. It may grow in fallopian tubes or in the ovary. Okay. So here endometriosis. What is endometriosis? The development of endometrium outside the uterus. Outside the uterus. Either it is around the ovaries or in the fallopian tubes. That may causes for unusual menstrual pain. That may causes for unusual menstrual pain. So what is endometriosis? Once again, I am repeating here. Endometriosis. Endometriosis, the development or growth of endometrium outside the uterus, either in the fallopian tubes or around the ovaries, which leads to unusual menstrual pain. Which leads to unusual menstrual pain. Okay, so that is endometriosis. Endometrium usually grow inside the uterus, but sometimes the endometrium may grow around the ovaries and also inside the fallopian tubes. That leads to unusual menstrual pain. Unusual menstrual pain. At the time of regeneration of endometrium inside the uterus, that cannot grow only in the uterus. Along with uterus, that may grow inside the fallopian tubes and also around the ovaries. So that leads to unusual menstrual pain. So that is also a disease you have to remember here. That is also common for female reproductive system. And after completion of that, one more disease already I gave you, that is ectopic pregnancy. Ectopic pregnancy. Ectopic pregnancy. What is ectopic pregnancy? Already I gave you. What is ectopic pregnancy? You see, in normal conditions, the implantation of blastocyst takes place inside the uterus. The implantation of blastocyst takes place inside the uterus. Already I gave you what is implantation. The attachment of blastocyst to the endometrium of uterus, or the attachment of blastocyst to the inner wall of uterus is known as implantation. So the site of implantation is endometrium of uterus. But sometimes the implantation takes place outside the uterus. More than in 90% of cases, this type of extrauterine implantations takes place in the fallopian tubes. Extrauterine means outside the uterus. Extrauterine implantations, more than in 90% of cases, takes place in the fallopian tubes, and rarely this type of implantation takes place in the cervical canal also. So, what is ectopic pregnancy? The implantation outside the uterus, either in the fallopian tubes or in the cervical canal, is known as ectopic pregnancy. The implantation outside the uterus. The implantation outside the uterus. The implantation outside the uterus, either in the fallopian tubes or in the cervical canal, is known as ectopic pregnancy. But in majority of the cases, where we can notice ectopic pregnancies, more than in 90% cases in fallopian tubes. So in these conditions, is there any chances for the successful survival of embryo or fetus? So the embryos cannot be fully formed and that cannot successfully survive. Okay, so that leads to abortions. Ectopic pregnancies leads to abortions. Ectopic pregnancy, in this case, ectopic pregnancy, there is no chances for successful survival of fetus. Embryogenesis only not completed here in these cases, that leads to abortions. Is it clear what is ectopic pregnancy? Usually in normal conditions, the implantation takes place inside the uterus, but rarely, sometimes the implantation takes place in the fallopian tubes or cervical canal, where there is no chances for survival of the embryos, that leads to abortions. That is ectopic pregnancy. Ectopic pregnancy also a common disorder. Already I told you in which conditions ectopic pregnancies may possible. Mainly if the ciliary epithelium, which is present inside the fallopian tubes, is damaged, then that may lead to this. That is the main reason for the ectopic pregnancies. That is a breakdown or degeneration of ciliary epithelium, which is present in the fallopian tubes. And after completion of this ectopic pregnancy, the next one here, after the ectopic pregnancy, the next is cervical cancer. Cervical cancer. Cervical cancer. It is a very common cancer for female reproductive system, especially to the neck of uterus. That is cervical cancer. It is caused by a virus. This type of cancers are caused by a virus, that is human papilloma virus. Which virus causes for this? Human papilloma virus is the causative agent for cervical cancer. Human papilloma virus. So, which is the causative agent for the cervical cancer? The cervical cancer is the cancer of cervix, that is the neck of uterus. It is caused by human papilloma virus. Human papilloma virus. Okay. So you all know that usually this type of cancers will be cured by simple surgeries or by radiotherapy or chemotherapies. But for cervical cancer, mainly they are using radiotherapy or surgery. Sometimes when the cancer is an advanced stage, then the doctors will suggest for the removal of uterus. Removal of uterus. The removal of uterus is known as hysterectomy. Already I gave you. Uterus is also known as womb or metra or hystera. So the removal of uterus is known as hysterectomy. Hysterectomy is the surgical removal of uterus. Here observe, the cervical cancer is the cancer of neck of uterus, that is cervix, and it is caused by a virus, that is a human papilloma virus, HPV. That you have to remember. Next, the next disease here is the breast cancer, one of the major effect for the female reproductive system, that is mainly for the mammary glands or breast cancer. Breast cancers. In modern society, the most affected cancers for the reproductive system of female is breast cancers. So, majority of the cancers for female reproductive system are breast cancers. The formation of tumors, solid tumors in the breast. Formation of solid tumors in the breast or mammary glands in female is known as breast cancer. Formation of solid tumors. Formation of solid tumors in the breast or mammary glands of female is known as breast cancers. Okay, and it is actually age related. This type of cancers are common after menopause. After menopause in the female. Already I told you what is menopause. The cessation or termination of menstrual cycle in the female around the age of 50 years. Around the age of 50 years, there is a termination or stopping or cessation of menstrual cycle takes place, that is known as menopause. After menopause, the female may get this type of cancers. And also it will start from 35 years also. From 35-year female it will start, but these are more in the female who crossed menopause. Okay, that you have to remember, right? So breast cancers. Recent researches suggesting breastfeeding may reduces the chances for breast cancers. Breastfeeding, giving milk to baby, may reduces the chances for breast cancers. The researchers have been telling that the female who are not giving milk to babies, there are more chances in that female, there are more chances for the breast cancers that they are suggesting. So breastfeeding is one of the very important thing by which there are chances to reduce the breast cancers in female. So that is about breast cancer. And next, you all know that along with this, infertility, already I gave you in male. All this type of disorders may lead to inability to produce offsprings, inability to produce children. So that is known as infertility. So infertility, the biological inability of a person to produce offsprings. The biological inability of a person to produce offsprings is known as infertility. So all these type of disorders may lead to infertility. Along with this, the female may face some menstrual disorders. The female may be affected by menstrual disorders also. We will discuss that menstrual disorders at the time of discussing about menstrual cycle in female human being. Okay, so that is about common disorders of female reproductive system. Common disorders of female reproductive system, that is completed. And after completion of this, now we will discuss about the next topic, gametogenesis. The next topic, gametogenesis, that you have to remember. Shall I rest? Okay. Now, up to that, male reproductive system and female reproductive system both are completed. Male reproductive system and female reproductive system are completed. Male and female reproductive systems are completed. Once you study male and female reproductive system comparatively, if you study male and female reproductive system comparatively, it will become easy to understand the concepts. Okay, you will do that. Now, we will continue the next topic, that is gametogenesis. Gametogenesis. The next topic after completion of male and female reproductive systems, the next topic in our syllabus, that is the gametogenesis. What is gametogenesis? What is gametogenesis? The process of production of male and female gametes by gonads. The process of production of what is gametogenesis? It is the process of production. It is the process of production of gametes. From where these gametes produced? Which organs produce the gametes? By gonads or primary sex organs. The process of production of gametes by gonads is known as gametogenesis. Okay, the process of production of mature gametes. The process of production of mature gametes by gonads is known as gametogenesis. Here I gave you gamete. I gave you gamete. What is that gamete? What is gamete? Without knowing this gamete, you cannot able to understand the process of gametogenesis. See, gametes are the haploid cells which can able to fuse with the gametes of opposite sex and able to produce the zygote. What is a gamete? Gamete is haploid reproductive cells. Gametes are haploid reproductive cells. Gametes are haploid reproductive cells. Gametes are haploid reproductive cells which have an ability to fuse with the gametes of opposite gender. Which have an ability to fuse with the gametes of opposite gender, and that causes for the formation of a zygote, a diploid cell zygote. That leads to formation of a zygote. Okay, this definition I am mainly giving for all sexually reproducing organisms, all dioecious organisms. This definition is for. Okay, right? What is gamete? Gamete is a haploid reproductive cell that have an ability to fuse with gametes of opposite sex and leads to production of a diploid cell, that is zygote. Okay, without the gametes, there is no chances for the sexual reproduction. Okay, right? That you have to remember. What is gametogenesis? It is the process of production of a mature gametes from the gonads. And gamete is a haploid reproductive cell which can able to fuse with the gamete of opposite gender or opposite sex, and that leads to production of zygote. Okay, right after completion of gamete. What are the gametes in human being? Which are the male gametes and which are the female gametes? What are the female gametes here and what are the male gametes? The male gametes are spermatozoa and the female gametes are ova. Male gametes are spermatozoa, female gametes are ova. Spermatozoa is plural, sperm is a singular. For a single gamete in male, sperm. More than one, we have to use spermatozoa. Spermatozoa. Ovum is singular, ova plural. Okay, so that you have to remember. In male, spermatozoa are the gametes, or sperm is the gamete. In male, spermatozoa act as a gametes, whereas in female, ova are the gametes. So the male gametes are spermatozoa, the female gametes are ova in the case of human being. In the case of human being, the male gametes are spermatozoa and the female gametes are ova. Okay. Now I gave you definition for gametogenesis. Now can you write the definition for male gametogenesis and female gametogenesis? The male gametes, that are spermatozoa, the process of production of spermatozoa by seminiferous tubules of the testis in male human being is known as spermatogenesis. So the male gametogenesis is spermatogenesis and the female gametogenesis is oogenesis. The female gametogenesis is oogenesis. So in human being, the gametogenesis is broadly divided into two types. The male gametogenesis or spermatogenesis the male gametogenesis or spermatogenesis, and female gametogenesis, that is oogenesis. In human being, the spermatogenesis is broadly divided, the gametogenesis is broadly divided into two parts, male gametogenesis and female gametogenesis. Male gametogenesis is spermatogenesis and female gametogenesis is oogenesis. First we will write definitions for spermatogenesis and oogenesis. What is spermatogenesis? Tell me. What is spermatogenesis? The process of production of spermatozoa in the seminiferous tubules, of the testes in male human being. The process of production of spermatozoa in the seminiferous tubules of the testes in male is spermatogenesis. Write down the definition. The process of production of spermatozoa in the seminiferous tubules of the testis of male. The process of production of spermatozoa in the seminiferous tubules of the testis in male is known as spermatogenesis. Next, what is oogenesis? The process of production of ova in the ovarian follicles of ovaries. In the ovarian follicles or Graafian follicles. Actually, the matured ovums or secondary oocytes are produced by the Graafian follicles, but the structural and functional units are ovarian follicles. So you will write ovarian follicles here. What is oogenesis? The process of production of ova by the ovarian follicles of the ovaries in female. The process of production of ova by the ovarian follicles of ovaries in the female is oogenesis. So, gametogenesis is the process of production of matured gametes by the gonads. The gamete is haploid reproductive cells which can able to fuse with the gametes of opposite gender that leads to formation of a diploid cell, that is a zygote. And in human being, there are two types of gametes. Human being is a sexually dimorphic organism. Male and female sexes are completely separated. It is a sexually reproducing organism, so gametogenesis is must. So here, the male gametes are spermatozoa and the female gametes are ova. The process of production of spermatozoa by seminiferous tubules of the testes in the ovarian follicles of the ovaries is about the spermatogenesis first, and after that we will discuss about oogenesis. When compared with the spermatogenesis, oogenesis is most complex process. Oogenesis is most complex and very long time taking process. We will discuss about the oogenesis later. First we will start spermatogenesis. Okay. So in the spermatogenesis, there are three phases in human being. The male gametogenesis and also the female gametogenesis. Both will be completed in three phases. The first one is phase of multiplication. The second one is phase of growth. And the third one is phase of maturation. So there are three phases in the spermatogenesis and also in the oogenesis. So in human being, the gametogenesis will be completed in three phases. What are they? The first phase is multiplication phase. Multiplication phase or phase of multiplication. Multiplication phase or phase of multiplication, which is followed by phase of growth or growth phase. Growth phase. The second phase is growth phase, and the third phase, that is the phase of maturation or maturation phase. Maturation phase. So the gametogenesis, either male gametogenesis or female gametogenesis in human being, that is spermatogenesis and oogenesis, is completed in 3 phases. That first one is multiplication phase or phase of multiplication. The second is phase of growth or growth phase. And the third one is the phase of maturation or maturation phase. Now we will discuss all these phases in the spermatogenesis. In the spermatogenesis, we will discuss about multiplication phase, growth phase, and maturation phase. Okay. Now first you have to know where the exact spermatogenesis takes place in the testes. Which is the exact location for that? Already I gave you many times. Seminiferous tubules. Seminiferous tubules of the testes. Seminiferous tubules of the testes are structural and functional units of testes because that are the sites of production of spermatozoa. So in this, spermatogenesis will begin only after puberty. Already I told you, all reproductive events will begin after puberty. What is the age of puberty in male reproductive system, in a male human being? That is 12 to 14 years is the age of puberty. After the 20, there is chances for production of spermatozoa, that is spermatogenesis. Now we will see here what will happen in the seminiferous tubules of the testes during this. Will happens in the seminiferous tubules during this all phases that I will give you now. Okay, right. Now in the spermatogenesis, first in the seminiferous tubules of testes, there are 2 types of cells present. Already I gave you cuboidal cells and columnar cells. Cuboidal cells are known as male germ cells, and columnar cells or cylindrical cells are known as Sertoli cells. So seminiferous tubules are internally lined by germinal epithelium. It is germinal epithelium. In this germinal epithelium, there are 2 types of cells: male germ cells, and also these long cells are cylindrical cells or Sertoli cells. These cuboidal cells, large cuboidal cells. These large cuboidal cells are male germ cells or primordial germ cells. Primordial germ cells. So the seminiferous tubules are internally lined by germinal epithelium. This germinal epithelium possesses 2 types of cells. The large cuboidal cells are male germ cells or primordial germ cells. Primordial germ cells. Male germ cells are primordial germ cells. And this long or cylindrical or columnar cells are Sertoli cells. Already I gave you the details of these 2. Okay. Now, which cells involves in this process, that is spermatogenesis? That is male germ cells or primordial germ cells. Male germ cells are primordial germ cells. What will happen first in the primordial germ cells or male germ cells? See, these primordial germ cells or male germ cells are diploid. So total number of chromosomes here are 23 pairs. They possess 23 pairs, means 46 chromosomes are present in the primordial germ cells. So at the beginning of spermatogenesis, in the multiplication phase, these primordial germ cells undergo repeated mitotic divisions. I am just giving a brief about this. After that, I will explain in detail. Just remember. So here, primordial germ cells are male germ cells which are diploid in nature that undergo repeated mitotic divisions. That undergo repeated mitotic divisions and produce more number of sperm mother cells. Sperm mother cells are spermatogonia. Spermatogonia. Sperm mother cells are spermatogonia. Is it clear? So here, observe. First, the male germ cells or primordial germ cells undergo repeated mitotic divisions that leads to formation of more number of sperm mother cells or spermatogonia. So that is multiplication phase. Multiplication phase. In this multiplication phase, what happened? Which type of divisions takes place? Mitotic divisions. Mitotic divisions. So the male germ cells or primordial germ cells undergo repeated mitotic divisions that leads to formation of more number of sperm mother cells or spermatogonia. So here which type of divisions are takes place in the multiplication phase? Mitotic divisions. So mitotic divisions are also known as multiplication divisions. Multiplication divisions. So in first phase multiplication divisions takes place. After that, after formation of spermatogonia, by getting nourishment from the Sertoli cells, the spermatogonia will grow in size. That will grow in size. That is the growth phase. What will happen in the growth phase? The spermatogonia will grow in size. That is growth phase. And after that, this spermatogonia, after reaching a particular size by getting nourishment from the Sertoli cells, that will grow in size and that modified into primary spermatocytes. Primary spermatocytes. Later, these primary spermatocytes undergo meiotic divisions and form secondary spermatocytes. Primary spermatocytes will undergo meiotic divisions or maturation divisions. So here, phase of multiplication, phase of growth are completed. Now, phase of maturation. In the phase of maturation, the primary spermatocytes will undergo meiosis 1. That leads to formation of secondary spermatocytes. Again, it will followed by meiosis 2 that leads to formation of spermatids. So just to remember this basic knowledge. Now we will discuss about all the phases in detail. Is it clear? So primordial germ cells undergo repeated mitotic divisions that leads to formation of more number of spermatogonia. That spermatogonia will undergo a process of growth by taking nourishment from the Sertoli cells that will grow in size and modifies into primary spermatocytes. That primary spermatocytes complete meiosis 1 that leads to formation of haploid secondary spermatocytes. That haploid secondary spermatocyte will complete an equational meiosis 2 that leads to formation of spermatids. Later, these spermatids undergo metamorphosis and modifies into spermatozoa. Now we will discuss all that in detail. Okay, first of all, here, which cells involved here, ma? Which cells start this process? Primordial germ cells or male germ cells. Primordial germ cells. Primordial germ cells. PGCs. Primordial germ cells are also known as male germ cells. The primordial germ cells are male germ cells. What is the condition? How many chromosomes are there? It is diploid. So total number of chromosomes here are 46. That means 23 pairs. They have to use actually 23 pairs. But for your understanding, I gave you there 46 chromosomes are there in primordial germ cells. Then what will happen in the primordial germ cells are male germ cells. This will undergo repeated mitotic divisions. This will undergo repeated mitotic divisions that leads to formation of spermatogonia or sperm mother cells. Spermatogonia, for example, observe here. Spermatogonia or sperm mother cells that you have to produce it there. But in the case of human being, this is what? It is primordial germ cells that undergo repeated mitotic divisions that leads to formation of spermatogonia. This spermatogonia also diploid in nature and possesses 46 chromosomes. That is also diploid in nature and possesses 46 chromosomes. But at the time of discussing about reproductive events, I gave you one important difference between male and female gametogenesis. As I told you, in male human being, gametogenesis will continue throughout the life. Male can able to produce a spermatozoa even in old age. But what about in female? Female cannot able to produce the ova in old age. So they can produce ova up to menopause. From menarche to menopause only they can able to produce the ova. How male can able to produce spermatozoa even in old age throughout the life? How? That is mainly because of this spermatogonia. See here, I told you the seminiferous tubules are internally lined by germinal epithelium. The germinal epithelium has two types of cells. Male germ cells are primordial stem cells and Sertoli cells. Sertoli cells are mainly for the nourishment, but primordial germ cells undergo repeated mitotic divisions, which leads to formation of sperm mother cells or spermatogonia. Here, the spermatogonia in male human being are of two types. In male human being, there is formation of two types of spermatogonia. One is type A spermatogonia. Another one is type B spermatogonia. In male human being, there are formation of two types of spermatogonia: type A spermatogonia and type B spermatogonia. Okay. This type A spermatogonia cannot undergo any meiotic divisions. So type A spermatozoa cannot type A spermatogonia cannot participate in the production of spermatozoa. Then what is the role of this type A spermatogonia here? Type B spermatogonia undergo meiotic divisions that leads to formation of spermatozoa. But type A cannot undergo meiotic divisions that cannot involve in the production of spermatozoa. But this act as a stem cells. The type A act as a stem cells. So very important, ma. Type A spermatogonia. The type A spermatogonia cannot undergo meiotic divisions. Instead of that, observe carefully. Instead of that, one second. Okay. Instead of going continuous mitotic division here. So type A spermatogonia act as a stem cell. It is just like a precursor of spermatogonia divisions, and that produce again type A and type B spermatogonia. Only type A spermatogonia will undergo meiotic divisions and produces the spermatozoa. But always type A is involved in the maintenance of number of spermatogonia. So the number of spermatogonia will always maintain in the testis because of type A spermatogonia. So spermatogonia are available in male human being throughout the life because of type A spermatogonia. So male human being can able to produce the spermatozoa throughout the life. But whereas in female, there is no production of type A and type B oogonia. There is production of only one type of oogonia. All will undergo meiotic divisions and produce the ovum. But here, in the multiplication phase, it is the first phase. Up to this, it is the first phase, multiplication phase. In the multiplication phase, what will happen? The primordial germ cells undergo repeated mitotic divisions and produce two types of spermatogonia or sperm mother cells. That are type A spermatogonia and type B spermatogonia. Type A spermatogonia cannot involve in the production of spermatozoa directly. But type B spermatogonia undergo the further phases, growth phase and maturation phase, and produces the spermatozoa. But what about type A? Type A Type A spermatogonia act as a stem cells that will undergo mitotic divisions instead of meiotic divisions. This will undergo mitotic divisions and always maintain the number of spermatogonia in the testes. Because of that only, the male human being can able to produce the which is not happened in the first phase. That is a phase of multiplication. Phase of multiplication. Which divisions takes place here? Only mitotic divisions. So which divisions are considered as a multiplication divisions? That are mitotic divisions. Mitotic divisions are considered as a multiplication divisions. Okay. Is it clear? Right. And after that, this spermatogonia which are produced by multiplication divisions. First phase completed, ma. What happened in first phase? The primordial germ cells of seminiferous tubules undergo repeated mitotic divisions, which are also known as and cells are spermatogonia, chromosomes. Later, this spermatogonia by absorption or by collecting materials by the Sertoli cells. So this spermatogonia will be nourished by the Sertoli cells by getting more nourishment. By getting more nourishment, this spermatogonia will grow in size and modifies into primary spermatocytes. What are these? Primary spermatocyte. Primary spermatocytes. These are also diploid and possess 46 chromosomes. 46 chromosomes. These are diploid and have 46 and possess 46 chromosomes. So this phase is growth phase. What happened in growth phase? The nutrients from the Sertoli cells and modifies into primary spermatocytes. Modifies into primary spermatocytes. There is a growth phase. So the two phases which will complete very fast and that will require a short period of time are completed here. Now the longest phase in the spermatogenesis, maturation phase, that phase we will discuss in next class, right? In spermatogenesis, multiplication phase and growth phase are completed. In next class, we will discuss about maturation phase and the spermiogenesis and spermiation, all the topics, right? That's clear. Thank you.